Hello. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Heather Freilich. I work as a licensed massage therapist, myofascial release practitioner, and Reiki master. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you a couple of simple tips to help decrease tension and pain in the back of the shoulder region. And the area I'm specifically referring to is that region that is in between the spinal column and the shoulder blade. That area houses some muscles such as the upper traps, the rhomboids, the erector spinae group, and some of the paraspinal muscles. And a lot of times when we are experiencing tension and pain back there, it happens to come from a root cause in the front of the shoulder, which is an over-tight pec muscle. And even some of the muscles in the front of the neck can be pulling the neck and head forward in such a way where it's creating a strain, a pull, and ultimately creating a weakness in the back of the shoulder blade here. And that's why we feel tension and pain in that region. So the first technique we're going to start off with is a myofascial release technique using a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball, any sort of ball that you could find that's not necessarily larger than about 4 inches in diameter. And we're going to follow the principles that I practice via the John Barnes Myofascial Release approach when we do that technique. And then after that, we're going to do a gentle stretch and movement technique to help open up the front of the shoulder and into the neck, to help take some of that pull off of the back of the shoulder that could be creating some of that tension and pain you might be feeling from being on the computer too long, hunched over your cell phone texting, or, you know, in this day and age, a lot of us have a lot of emotions coming up in this time of unknowns. And one of the things that we can experience physically in the body, if we're feeling any fear around that, is our body's subconscious need to protect some of the most vulnerable areas in our human body, such as the heart. Even down below in the abdominal region, with all those visceral organs there, our arms and hands and shoulders can come forward to help protect us when we're feeling afraid. So this technique will help, reverse that. It'll help open up the front of our shoulders and release some of the pulling, gnawing, weakening tension that's being created in the back. So come and join me and we'll start the technique in a moment. Okay, so go ahead and grab your tennis ball, your 4-inch therapy ball, lacrosse ball, whatever you have. And before we start this technique, I want you to be mindful of something. If you have any acute injury in the shoulder girdle region, your collarbone, and your neck, please do not do this particular technique. And aside from that, it is going to be most important for you to listen to your body throughout the technique. This is not a no pain, no gain experience. This is actually a pain, no gain experience. So some of you might feel some discomfort arise to the surface, and that's okay in the sense that it should hurt so good. And what I mean by that is that if you feel discomfort rise up to the surface, but the more you're releasing into your ball, you should ideally start to feel some relief. If you feel any pain rise to the surface, but it's increasing in its intensity and it's getting worse, please go ahead and either ease up your pressure a little bit or get off the ball. This is not going to be a technique where we're going to try to force the tissue to the release. The fascia does not like to be forced. The fascia loves an invitation to let go. So we're going to invite the fascia to let go. So what we're going to do is take your ball and choose your shoulder area of choice that you're going to focus on. And now where we want to ideally be is on the tissue in between the spinal column and the shoulder blade. So that soft tissue region. And I'm going to have you roll up and down a couple of times just to see if you could find that sweet spot. And what I mean by that, the sweet spot is that one spot that's like, whoa, I feel so much there. That feels like it's the, mothership of all the tension I'm feeling in my shoulders, neck, and head. Feel free to find that spot and gently sink in. I'm going to set the timer here for 5 minutes, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing that in just a moment. Oops, I can't seem to reach it very well. All right, so we've got that started. So, a couple of things as we're going into this technique. First of all, why 5 minutes? This is following some of the principles that I shared with you earlier via the John Barnes Myofascial Release approach, which is what I practice in my bodywork practice in Chicago. And first of all, the fascia, like I said, likes to be invited to release. It actually braces against force. So we want to go ahead and just sink into the tissue until you feel like you can't sink anymore without actually forcing your tissue to let go. And so the fascia, in its invitation to release, it's just like humans in the sense of you receive an invitation, you have to look at your calendar to see if you have another event coming up, you have to decide if you even want to go to this particular thing. The fascia needs a minute to 2 minutes to decide if it's going to start to let go. So it's taking that first minute or two to actually start letting go. Now imagine you just laid on the ball for a half a minute or a minute. The fascia just started to let go and then you got off the ball. You didn't get a full release. So we want to stay for a 5-minute minimum to allow the fascia to release as fully as possible, first of all. Second of all, something beautiful and magical happens in our body at the 5-minute mark. And what happens at that moment in time is a chemical in our body called interleukin 8, which is our body's natural anti-inflammatory and natural cancer killer, gets dispersed throughout our system. And it starts to ease up and help with pain relief in the fascial system. So I tell a lot of my students and clients that interleukin 8 is like the pot of gold at the end of the myofascial rainbow. As cheesy as that might sound, sometimes that clicks with people, and anytime you're doing this, particular 5-minute technique on your own, people tend to report that impatience can come up and just be like, oh my gosh, when is this going to be over? Or I only have a couple of minutes, And so I encourage you to think about interleukin 8 being the pot of gold at the end of the myofascial rainbow, because perhaps that's one little nugget that's going to help you stay in the technique for the full 5 minutes minimum. Now if you wish, after we're done with this video, if you feel like you want to hold this technique even longer than 5 minutes, let's say 6 to 8 minutes, go ahead and do so. I do not suggest falling asleep on the ball though. That could create a world of unintentional discomfort if you're on the ball for too long. Now, I'm going to just slow down for a moment, let you feel the softening that's starting to happen in your fascial system. Imagine your tissue melting against the ball as it releases, like ice cream that fell off of an ice cream cone down onto a sidewalk on a hot summer day. Imagine your tissue melting into the ball just as that ice cream would melt into the sidewalk. Keep feeling into the release as I check the timer, which we have just a little over a minute left. And one other little piece of advice I want to give you. You are more than welcome to do this technique on the floor when you do it on your own. However, when you do it against the wall, you have an opportunity to play with your pressure a little bit more than you would be able to when you're laying on the floor. So if you feel like you ever need more pressure when you're going against the wall, feel free to take your feet out a little further so you're kind of hanging out at a little bit more of an angle, putting more pressure into the ball. Or if you feel like this is too much, step your feet in towards the wall a little bit, and that eases up the pressure. Take some of that pressure off of the ball. And for about this last 30 seconds, just allow yourself to keep breathing into that tissue that's starting to let go, and imagine releasing tension through your exhale. Let it leave your body through your breath. And that is time. So go ahead and remove the ball. I'm going to turn off the timer here. And so from there, go ahead and take your ball and just place it down on the floor or somewhere next to you. And what you're going to go ahead and do next is we're going to say hello to the front of our shoulder, the neck in the front, the side, and the back. So you have 4 different arm positions you can choose from. You can either just bring your arms out to the side so you get a nice stretch here in your pec muscle, very gentle stretch. Or if you want to clasp your hands behind your back, or grab your elbows, or clasp your hands behind your back, but bring them over to the opposite side of where you're stretching so you get a nice opening in the pec muscle here. Then from there, you're going to go ahead and take your head and tilt it to the opposite side of where you're stretching. And we're going to do something called neck flossing. Now, just like you're flossing your teeth, we're going to do a back and forth motion to floss and stretch the front, side, and back, the back, side, and front of our neck. So choose your hand position of choice. Once again, out to the side, clasping them back, grabbing your elbows, or bringing them off to one side. Just roll your shoulders back for a moment, and then tilt your head to the opposite side. Now we're going to do small, little forward and back bends with our neck. We're going to make about like a quarter of a circle with the top of our head. So you're not going to be looking all the way down or all the way up when we do this. You're just going slight tilt to the side and angling slightly forward, moving slightly back. Usually what I encourage clients to do is to start off with about 10 of these, with front and back being 1, front and back being 2, and so on and so forth. Once you've reached 10, go ahead and take your hand towards the side you're leaning towards and push your head up. Now that might look funny, however, that keeps the area you stretched nice and relaxed. And then go ahead and shake out your arms. Roll your shoulders back for a moment and just see if you could feel a difference between the 2 sides. And like I shared earlier, if you wish to, I highly encourage you to visit the other side after we're done together. So that is a simple technique. There are so many more techniques that help open up the front of the shoulder and release tension in the back of the shoulder. And if you wish to learn more, I highly recommend visiting my website, www.heatherfralick.com, and click on the Workshops and Circles tab. I have an upcoming weekly workshop on Thursday evenings at 5:30 called The Art of Letting Go. It's an online myofascial release self-care workshop where I'll be teaching you all sorts of goodies and different myofascial release techniques to help ease tension and pain in your body. This week we'll be focusing on upper body releases, and next week we'll be focusing on lower body releases and moving on from there. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to post them in the comments below, or you can reach out to me directly at heather@heatherfralick.com, and I'd be happy to answer your email. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.